Hi, my name is Dyanne Dixon. I'm married to Gary, and we have been coming to Papster now for probably about 10 years. I met Aster about 14 years ago here in Auckland, but in the home of an Ethiopian family that Gary and I are friends with. And at the time, I didn't know who she was or how long she'd been here, but I've since discovered that she was born in Ethiopia, lost her mum at the age of 6, and was left to be cared for by her grandfather. When she was about 11 or 12, her dad turned up on the doorstep. He had had to flee Ethiopia when the war was on, and so he had never met his daughter. So this man, who was her father, turned up on her doorstep. But to her, he was a stranger. So she had to leave all that was familiar to her. She ended up living in Sudan as a refugee with him, and then came to New Zealand. And she was boarding with this family, and I had a little bit to do with her, but not a lot. It wasn't until she actually moved to Christchurch many years later, and then rang me one day to say, "I'm getting married. Will you take my wedding photographs for me?" We shot her wedding, and I realized as I was doing that this man who she had so much hope in to start a happy married life actually didn't reciprocate her feelings at all. And my feelings were confirmed about a week later when he let her know that he had just used her to get into New Zealand. And to get away from the shame and the embarrassment and the pain, she left Christchurch and went to Melbourne. And she started life over again there. She was there for 5 years, and in that time she met somebody else through Facebook. And she went over to Addis Ababa, where she spent some time with him, and they confirmed that they wanted to get married. They got engaged, and she came back to Melbourne again. She contacted me again to say that she was pregnant. And a few months later, I found out that she was actually returning to New Zealand. She'd had to leave her job. Her father didn't want her in his home. She had no benefit over there, so she made the decision to come to New Zealand. And I got back in touch with her the day that she was actually driven to hospital by ambulance because it was discovered that she had preeclampsia and gestational diabetes. I don't know why she contacted me to let me know she was pregnant or that she was coming back to New Zealand, but she did. So I made the effort to pop into hospital to see her. I took some yellow roses that I hope would cheer her up, and I spent a couple hours with her in hospital. And I wasn't expecting, anything. I didn't have any preconceived ideas of the future. I just thought I was having a wee visit, but it turned into a lot more than that. I could see her loneliness. I could see her pain, her worry, about her baby, about her preeclampsia, whether she was going to survive, whether her baby was going to survive. So little Naomi was born on the 7th of May, 2017. Her hospital was her home for about the first 5 weeks of her life. And Aster, of course, was in hospital as well with her. The day that Naomi was discharged, they had nowhere to go. Aster was homeless. She had no home to go to. So we dropped her off at a motel nearby that was approved by WINS, and that was her home for a full month before she was given accommodation at DePaul House over on the North Shore, a Catholic organization that helped people find homes. But she finally got a house with New Zealand Housing in October, and she's been there for about 6 months now. So what does life look like for me and Aster on a weekly basis? It could be anything from taking her grocery shopping, which can be a few hours. It can be a WINS appointment. It can be sorting something out with New Zealand Housing New Zealand. I'm her agent for both WINS and Housing New Zealand. So if there's anything wrong with the house, it's me that rings and tries to get it sorted out. It can mean arranging for plunket appointments, for plunket nurse to come and see her and give her some advice. We spent hours and hours actually processing her fiance's visa application. It can mean getting phone calls from Aster at actually all hours of the day or night because she's concerned about something with regard to little Naomi. So really consistently throughout the week there's involvement, Gary and I, with Aster. She often invites us around for a meal. She loves having us for a meal and never likes us to go home. So life is really lonely for her, and I think that we have tried our best to fill that gap in her life, and she gets no relief from being a full-time mum. It's been constant for her. A lot of these things have been really inconvenient, I have to say, and haven't fit in with my schedule. In fact, I have to be honest and say that there's been sacrifices that I've had to make for my time and money. There's been lots of things that I haven't been able to do that I would like to do. But you know, every time I want to sort of back away or stop, my mind is immediately filled with thoughts of what I have in my own upbringing, my mother, my dad, how good they were, how much they loved me, how much they inputted into my life. Aster hasn't had that. She's got nobody. And if I walk away from her, who's going to fill that gap in her life? So in many ways, I really feel that God has brought her across my path for a reason. And that's what's kept me going. That's what's kept me going, knowing that I have been blessed so much, and that God just doesn't bless us, doesn't just bless me so that I have those good things in my life. He wants me to give those good things to other people as well. So Aster and Naomi are the ones that I can give to at this point in my life. So it's really through hearing and understanding Aster's story and where she's come from that has really touched my heartstrings and has encouraged me and motivated me to be to her what Jesus would be if he was here on earth. What can I do for her that Jesus would do if he was walking this earth? What can I do? What can I be to her? Even though it's inconvenient, even though times it's really hard, the knowledge that this is what I can do for God is really fulfilling for me.